Thank you for joining me. I'm Karen Ann McDonald, Karen Ann Lusick McDonald here, 13th clan mother. Let's get into the bear clan and let's talk with someone that's really pivotal in this field. I love it. I've got Maureen Walton O'Brien here. She's the author, creator of The Good Darkness, all about the wisdom of the womb blood, womb mastery, and all sorts of stuff. So please look at our part one. Now we're going on to part two. So you're going to have to catch up with us because Maureen wants to talk about the actual sacred geometry, the connection to the ether and the cosmos, and basically what we call the sacred geometry of the womb. And if people don't know, there's chakras within the womb, because they do. And those connections, no different than iridology, connect everything and connect us to everything. So, Maureen, can you talk a little bit about the redirection of the womb and the sacred geometry, the toroid fields, the electrical magnetic connections, and how that all works for us, please? Thank you.
Yes, okay, I'll try to simplify it a bit. Like the meditation takes us slowly right through the whole thing when I present it. So I'm going to try to recap it. So because the womb is a powerful magnetic organ, whereas the heart is the electrical. So it's like the masculine aspect within us. And it's ready to receive, but it hasn't been receiving this beautiful cosmic energy via the womb since we've been losing our blood, which has only been a few hundred years in the Americas, I think,
Mm-hmm.
uh, but certainly, much longer, as you know, in other cultures like my own. So the whole big picture here is that because women are much more magnetic, um, if you can, the magnetism forms the toroidal field.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's the gathering process. So, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to take you first out into the cosmos
Okay.
and just imagine yourself looking down at this little solar system floating by in the great cosmic. I don't like to use the word void because that means empty, and the cosmos is full of potential, right? It's full
Mm-hmm.
of all life, but not yet in form. It's a womb. It's the darkness where everything is born from. So, um, if you look at the solar system and the sun in the center, so even though the sun's this fiery electric um, force, it too, because we always have the complement, it too has its own toroidal um, form,
Mm-hmm.
which holds all the planets in place, right? Going around the sun. So the central channel of the sun's torus is sucking in directly the cosmic wisdom and all the potential of all life, but not yet in form. Everything that ever will be or ever will be is being pulled in by the sun, and it comes in, the central channel and out the other side. And guess what's floating by is the little Earth. And the Earth, of course, has its magnetic field around it. And it has the central channel, and it sucks directly in those cosmic energies thrown at us by the sun. So it's coming pretty direct without any interference
Mm-hmm.
right into the Earth's toroidal field, which we call the ethers, right? Always flowing by the surface of the Earth, like through the central channel, out the other end, and around and around. And these are very pure. They're traveling at such incredible speed and momentum.
Right.
They hardly have time to pick up
Yep.
all the stuff,
Yep.
all the negativity, all what's going on in Earth. I mean, it's always flowing. And Don Juan, so I remember reading that he said um, somehow women have direct access to the cosmic wisdom, but we don't really know how. And I think this is it, because now if you can imagine yourself with your own horizontal, your own torus, horizontal one, standing on the earth, and you just, no matter which way you're facing, you're going to be receiving those ethers directly into your womb. I got that image again. Is that in the right?
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah. Right there is perfect. Yeah.
Okay, you can see the horizontal torus is much larger than the vertical masculine one that connects with the solar and earth realm. So we got solar, earth, vertical, and cosmic ethers horizontal. I don't know the scientific technology yet of why the human torus, at least the woman's torus, that both those, all four of those cones are converging into the center, but they're all converging in and creating this powerful 0 point in the center that we can move at will, up or down.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're moving it with our breath and our intention into our womb, it is full of that very non-human, very cosmic. It doesn't carry any karma or any ancestral. That's what I think is very unique about women. Like, we carry the source, whereas the men carry the finishing. They're the heart predominantly. They're the manifesting principle. So I think that's why we used to be amazing partners, where we would feed the men and they would be able to build things like pyramids and whatever is happening, whatever magical things have been built on the earth, because they were listening to us and receiving from us this cosmic wisdom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So then the actual meditation is about how we redirect, we take that 0 point that's formed
Mm-hmm.
and begin to lift it with intention, and with that lower cone of energy in the vertical system, we begin to lift it. And there's lots of tools, there's tuning forks, there's so much you can use to lift that 0 point. And once it, no, well, I mentioned before briefly that it's not coming up the central channel to get confused with the Kundalini, because it's physical blood. It's coming up the right vena cava, apparently,
Mm-hmm.
to the kidney, which
Right.
does carry frequencies.
Absolutely.
And then it's coming to the heart, and then it's marrying with the electrical energy. And I think the heart is so relieved to be finally receiving again the cosmic energies. And because the heart, is more connected to the solar and the worldly world and the emotions, where the womb wouldn't have emotions. It would just have the compassion, free of human drama, right? It's just
Right.
pure. And then that would really calm the person in the heart too, right? Then that's as far as the Kiro, that's as far as, how can I say, what was left of the Kiro system when I received it. But then, if I can add, now I mentioned that in just after I printed the book, the first book, I got epilepsy. And during that drama of my first grand mal seizures, fortunately I haven't had any more, I got like amazing dreams and diagrams. Don't forget to include the brain. And of course, epilepsy is like, it was my guy side that blew up my left brain. And it's since allowed more of my feminine to come through. But anyway, I got these diagrams along with this telepathic message of, you must include the brain. So, I mean, I just did that. I just figured, I guess I better listen. And so I have this I don't know, this isn't a black and white one, which is harder to read here.
Yeah.
But this
Right there a little bit. Yeah.
is not in the book because I've done this since. you know, it may be in the second book, but shows how it's, how it comes up the left side of the body and then over to the right side after the heart is coming up the artery up to the pineal and then to the left and right sides of the brain. So I think that's when you would reach full awareness,
Hmm.
you know, on
Or
a
diamond rainbow body lotus thing, whatever we want to call it.
yeah.
I think that it again it's in frequency. So whether like what I do is biofeedback because I can use unlimited frequencies, not just limited to a few sounds by tuning forks and stuff like that. But nonetheless, some of these pure isochronic tones also help. I think in raising. And I
I
noticed a lot of it when I do biofeedback, people can feel the tingling and the movement or things are starting to reconnect, right? So I think it's really huge. You mentioned
I
about the
think
sound in meditation.
yes, but I have to keep in mind that there's this physical blood too moving up. No,
Exactly. The
not I.
frequency.
Are you saying that the physical blood and the frequency is the same? What are you saying?
Well, what you're doing is you can change the actual blood, right? It's like, do we have a solid, silver, or do we have a colloidal silver? Or do I have a nano silver or a femi silver or a penta? There's different frequencies, just like we would have the solid to the liquid to the gas.
Oh,
And
within
those,
the physical blood. There's
right.
so
And then literally, even with that, what you're doing is you're crossing what we call the blood-brain barrier, right? So that's why a lot of the essential oils, or you could take amber, like a crystal, like amber, and turn it into an essential oil, or frankincense is resin as opposed to plant stuff. But a lot of the trees with their resins, frankincense, cedarwood, and myrrh and
yeah.
sandalwood all cross the blood-brain barrier. That's why they were used for healing or always
I
kept people in a state of enlightenment, and for
okay,
delivery.
what do you mean it crosses the blood-brain barrier?
Well, there is a barrier around the brain, right? So
Oh,
the different frequencies, and only certain substances can do that. That's why when they take a pharmaceutical, which is really a black magic sorcery, it calcifies the third eye. So anyone that was taking technically pharmaceuticals, what they would say could never ascend into the heavens because they would have them blocked off here. So it would basically calcify, just like fluoride would be. But when we started using essential oils, because all the food on the earth is only about what we call 30 megahertz, essential oils like spruce and pine is for the pineal gland, like just like frankincense is, it crosses the blood-brain barrier. In other words, it goes to the sixth, seventh, and opens those gateways to the eighth, ninth, and the other chakras as well, the reconnections.
so are you saying that these oils could penetrate right into the
Yeah,
bloodstream?
they do. I can take any
Right.
essential oil, put them on anyone, and I can see it on live blood and on my machines within minutes,
Okay.
right? So you're not only oxygenating, but it chelates out toxins that shouldn't be there. A lot of people aren't aware of it. So it's not just oxygenating the brain, the blood, and whatever. It literally is chelating out foreign materials. It's one of the best things for taking out toxins, detoxing, is essential oils.
So I wonder if this is something that would be good to do before one starts to redirect that cosmic
Always.
energy,
Yeah.
because you wouldn't want to play with the cosmic energy, or would you? You would want to.
No, it would enhance it. That's why they always used it for part of their
Okay.
meditation. So they would use that even if I go to meditate. I mean, frankincense, I mean, I like more wood stuff, like, so if pine fir, I've actually made a blend of every wood that I have. So it's got frankincense and cedar wood and sandalwood and, spruce and all those wonderful things in Idaho, black spruce, whatever. And those to me, why they use that. That's why the most important things they had weren't banking, they were storage houses of essential oils, in here. And that makes total sense, whether people go along with scriptures or just look at, history or our story. Even for that, I've used with women during, pregnancy, and that why did they put the umbilical cord? Why did they anoint the children immediately after they were born? Was with essential oils, right?
So you know what I'd like to add to that is that um, I ordered from you the Western cedars
Hmm.
essential oil, right? And you know what it did? And I've used it now for a month, and it dispelled my petit.
Exactly. That's what I was saying when we got into that. That's why, as an aromatherapist, but also the biofeedback, as we scanned you with the biofeedback, looked at the energy, the aura, where the leaks were, every essential oil can raise you up. And the brain to work needs about, we'll just say 70 to close to 100 megahertz. There's not a food on this planet that will do that. You convert it into an essential oil, will cross the blood-brain barrier, and then that food, where it was a plant at, let's say, 30 megahertz, is now 800 or 1,000 megahertz. So as we get it more concentrated and smaller, similar, better than a homeopathic, that's why they work, because they can protect the brain. And that's why they used, whether we go into the, anointing with the, frankincense and myrrh on the children, by the three kings or the wise men or whatever we want to say, that was all done here, which is, I found interesting, because what they said is like, oh, those are a snake oil salesman, or we talk about the snakes in the Kundalini, we talk about the cosmos, the third month, our breasts and stuff. But what happens is when you actually get into those oils, they were actually, that's why when you look to the, I guess, pyramids, and you see the Egyptian mummies and stuff like that in sarcophaguses, they still have their skin because they were literally saturated with essential oils. So even those viruses, bacteria, funguses, that type of thing, and then protecting, especially the brain now with all this AI and 5G, 6G, 7G. 6G is inside, coming up through the ground, because we've changed from things coming at us with towers to now it's coming up through the ground with 6 and 7G. So I think that is exactly why. Once I get someone in there, scan them. Remember, my biofeedbacks will not only give me sounds to heal those parts of the brain, like brain surgery or etheric surgery. To me, it's soul retrieval. So where the systems are leaking, I can go in and actually, like shamanically, do it as another form of using the biofeedback with the sound, because it's a sound generator mind. It's not just about using plasma or ether or rife or scale. It can go in and tell me, and then it can, similar to muscle testing, it can give me the sound of the frequency. So I gave you the sound of the cedarwood, the sound of the frankincense, the sound of the whatever I was doing, lavender, the sound of the St. John's, whatever I needed to do. It will give us those, which is really interesting, because if you're low in minerals, it will give you the sound of iron, the sound of zinc, the sound of magnesium, right? And this is where you get into really the fun stuff. So that's where I like this. It's all about, and as a friend of mine, Sabrina Wallace, has talked about with this piloerection and getting basically the mind is the matter of meditation. She's got people meditating so that they can stand every cell or every hair on, which is basically generating stem cells, which is creating a shielding from what she calls the wide body area network, which is what we call the biofield out here as well, right? Your auric field. And so I think that's amazing, because what they're doing is they're hijacking that part, which is exactly what you're saying is happening when you're doing the meditation, or the women are losing their essence, literally. It's phenomenal. I worked with Dr. Robert Young and did some live blood cell and classes and many different, shows and projects and stuff. But one of the things that was interesting, he said, Karen, do you realize that when a male and a female come together, the creation, the life spark, what comes out of that explosion of creation to form a child, a baby, another being, a soul, is a drop of blood. He says the first thing that's formed is a drop of blood, which is exactly
cosmic blood.
Exactly. There's the cosmic blood being brought in. So I thought that's phenomenal.
Oh, is it not true that when you become pregnant, you stop losing your blood, right? Because it's needed. So it's needed for us just as much. In fact, with this work, it feels as if, it's also a birth control. So it feels like the womb blood was meant for us first, and making babies is kind of a secondary role. I mean, becoming an enlightened woman is our first responsibility of keeping our blood.
Well,
after that, maybe we can make a baby if we choose, and maybe not,
Well, I think this comes into, like, it was interesting when they talk about, with myself being a matriarch, one of the, clan mothers, in your, the white one, right? I was laughing with other people, but, no one goes like, oh, the black one, right? It's like, anyway, which is in there. But that was one of the first things I see, is that matriarchs and that blood and the sacred geometry and the wisdom that has been missed. And we all have just little parts of it, and how this has been taken, like you said, over the last 500 years, with Tartarian and this thing, and now they want to take away the entire motherland and call it a republic, and now they want to reset and republic it again, like it didn't work the first time. But it's funny, like the women have always been here, and like you said, it's a taking away from the integrity, from the sacredness, and birth
Totally.
control, like I said, it was their ability to create. And this
When
is
they
where I
wanted
think we need to get to, restoring back this sacred knowledge. Like they said, there's a time and a place, and right now it's to share it. And I'm very much like the people that want to come, they'll find us. You know,
like,
I was like, I was shocked. I was like, there's someone that actually did a book on parthenogenetics and everything else. And, because, looking through Steiner's or, Anastasia talks all about the telegony, how you could just, again, with children, there's an entire book she did just on child and how to connect and women creating and co-creating children. This to me is phenomenal, and you tied your stuff totally into it. So I think we all have little bits and pieces in here, like you said.
yes, because my what I've focused on is for the woman to strengthen herself first
That's
before she
neat,
starts thinking about parthenogenesis. We have to look after ourselves first,
for sure.
redirect the blood, bring ourselves to an awakened state, and then some of us may choose to self-conceive. So I'm trying to take the focus away from just, I mean, but excuse me, I should say that it can happen, I think, by accident or different circumstances that a woman who's not aware and not enlightened can self-conceive. But unfortunately, the child dies very young, because I don't think it's the right way to do it.
Well, no, and I agree. And I mean, I'm also a former neonatal intensive care nurse. So talk to me about attending deliveries on high risk and seeing, abnormalities in genetics. And now I know this hybridization, really what's going on. There's been a whole different agenda that, I've seen in the last, 40 years as well that way. And so one of the things is that the women are not looking after themselves. I've always said, when people, I want to help, I want to do organic farms, I want to, be a healer. And I went, look after yourself first. You put that mask on yourself. And it was the same thing in the last 6 years. How could we conceive? It blows my mind that as a woman and as a mother, right? We weren't even supposed to take an aspirin, let alone injecting foreign materials and foreign genetics of animals into us, and seeing what kind of a hybridization. And now we know with what they've done, they cracked that genetic code. This is what the whole last 8 years has been about, and seeing what it's done. A lot of it's like soulless, to look into that and seeing what's going on. We're more than just, as people think, containers or vessels or a vagina or something like that. That's the creation, and that's really what I think is so important. Is what you're bringing forward, is that you have to look after the sacredness. I mean, this is a temple to me.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and when you defy the temple, those laws, and nature's law has always been there. The creator's law has always been there. They've always talked it scripturally even, that the women of the clan, or the tribal women that kept their DNA there, and I'll talk the genetics in that sense as being pure, right? They didn't defile that. They knew what this was. People started defiling women, since they started their first nights, right? And dowries and stuff, right? They wanted to get that other set of genetics in, right? And that was the whole point of war, raping, and whatever else we want to say. But those women were always called angels, which I always thought was cool, because they called them the women of pure light, or the women of the great spirit, or the women of the creator. And they called them the angels, which to me also, you can play with it. They had the original angles, or the DNA was intact. That was the mitochondrial DNA, or what we call the church of the firstborn. And you could pass it to the men, but they could not pass it down. So we could give it to our children, but only the female lineage of the first female or the oldest female would get a different set of genetics. And they've been tracing mitochondrial DNA and haploids and genetics, and migration trails forever. And it's connected to the bloodlines, which is connected to what's your soul tribe, really, which I think is fascinating. So this, how did you, when you met with the women and you started learning about this meditation and how to come back into that and how to redirect that, that tied right into the, can you talk a little bit about the sacred geometry and the magnetic and the toroidal field? How that you see that that fills everything to me is, the bigger the energy, the bigger the field, the bigger the reconnection as well. And I can see that because I can measure it. I mean, in certain things, some of us can see energies and auras, some of us feel them. But I do like having sometimes the technology because it's quicker just to look at sometimes at some of my biofeedbacks and just see where are women losing their vital energy, and a lot of times that's why I got into women's health, right? So going into what we call the yoni or womb or steaming or using vaginal like herbs going directly into the womb, not just rectal suppositories and enemas, but they
Yeah.
used the womb and the vagina as medicine. That's where they took their medicine up because it didn't have to get broken down through a digestive system. They actually took everything internally and they steamed, and you can see all these incredible things. I'll be able to say vagina in 20 languages by the time I'm done. A chai yolk. There's a word in every culture for the women steaming. Every tribe had a form that was passed down from those mothers that would teach, their tribes. And I think that's vital information that's been lost. Like the yoni steam to me and the pearls. And I mean, even as a nurse, we used to give rectal suppositories because it was absorbed 100%. Now, no one we're coming back finally to that, thing of the womb medicine right now. A lot of people talk about red tents and black lodges and they're dark lodges and they really don't know what that is. They've made it look like Lululemon, like, of what we're supposed to be doing. They've missed the integrity that you have brought to the forefront through, your wisdom and your ability to communicate it through not only art, but through your books as well. Could you talk a little bit more about those fields and those magnetics as you see that? Or wherever you'd like to talk about or add that we haven't talked about yet?
Yes, what I'd like to share is that as um, I don't know if that one is that got enough
Yeah.
contrast you can see it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
perfect. It's gorgeous.
that kind of shows that from another dimension how the horizontal is all around us. Yeah. Um, uh, so as I started, looking at what was happening here, I realized that it had, we've got the electric heart and magnetic womb and the 0 point. And this is free energy technology, right? And
Zero
so
point. We call it 0 point too, yeah. But yeah, free energy technology, the 0 point that right into literally where peace is. To me, that's the peace treaty. We have peace between us and the creator. It's amazing that you talk about that,
so
that 0 point.
as I started looking online, I realized that, this is how free energy UFOs are built or and so then it just turns out that in the 1980s, while I was living here, about an hour north of me near in Madoc, there was um, a guy in his 50s
Mhm.
who was visited by the Cladens, an alien race, who said that, you're kind of interfering, the Earth's goings on is kind of interfering with this. We want to teach you how to build a free energy device. And so he followed their instructions
Right.
and built it. And so long story short is that um, he built it, it worked, it took off. He had to start all over again because he lost it. And he started rebuilding it, and he died when it was almost complete. And his students took it over. So I've met his students,
Mhm.
and I just went up yesterday to visit with them, and I'm trying to share with them that they have the outer version of what the women carry naturally within. And they're starting to get open to the idea, but it's really hard for them to, they're mechanics and they are dealing with free energy, But what is beautiful that the materials they are using, that they were directed to use, is granite,
Hmm.
gold, and magnets.
Yeah.
So there's the feminine right in there. And so I'm learning about how this little UFO works. What he did was he shifted the focus. He said, why can't I use this same technology to build a healing chamber
Hmm.
rather than a ship that takes off? So so he's got a healing chamber up there that I've sat in a few times. And so to me, to me, I can see right there how the feminine is the source and the masculine is the finishing. We offer like, so they need to listen to us. These guys need to listen to me, but not there yet. No, so they're very respectful. They're very good to me.
Well, it's kind of cute now that you've put a whole new thing onto the UFO and UAP and unidentified aerial phenomena, right? They've always talked, I mean, and we've always said the Stargate, everyone, oh, this is the Stargate. I said, I think the Stargate is the cosmos. It's the star chambers. If you go back into original scriptures and look at the original meaning of it, this is what it was. To be courting, not dating. All these things all tie into the original ways of, you know, even men and women coming together. What's inside is outside. Even when showed one of those diagrams, right? When I looked at, the blood system, as we see the blue on one side, the red on the other, right? It's what comes together in the center, right? Those are those nodal points. Those are those stargates, really. And it maps the entire circulation system, which a
Right.
lot of people have missed. And that's why, like you mentioned, when I use tones or crystals or tuning forks, or I've got amethyst crystal beds here that I can lay any other crystal and you're like almost floating, right? Out
Mhm.
again, back to the original wisdom that, I was seeing back in here. They talked about building those frequencies or that biofield around us in Anastasia, the swinging cedars of Russia. It also talked a lot about telegony and having out of body and astral traveling, and that the women, through the direction of the meditation, which would be very similar to what we're talking about, is they would basically go astral travel and remote view wherever they want on whatever planet they wanted. They didn't need to have a physical, you know, ship or whatever you want to say. They could leave immediately, which I think was they talk about all of us were part of time travel
Mhm.
and time travelers and star travelers and astral travelers. So I think this is really important that you kind of bring that 0 point technology that they've been trying to basically mimic what we already have within. Just like, why would we use phones when we didn't need synthetic telepathy. We had
Exactly.
it naturally, right?
But again, we used to work as partners going back to the ancient days, right? Where we see the remains of the ruins of what the men built.
Yeah.
But I think it was coming from what the women had organically.
Oh, absolutely. Like I love starting because
Good way.
hmm?
In a good way. I
Yeah.
was going back to
Oh,
the ancient times because we were real partners then.
oh, absolutely. We were, that's where the whole term, how can you love someone else if you don't love yourself? And I think that was a really important thing that you brought, is that if we don't love ourselves, how can you love someone else or love your children? Things like that,
Yeah.
because some people are just not there or they're blocked up, and they may never unblock, those type of things. But that was the love and be loved. I really thought that was always a cherished word. Like, it's not my wife, it's not my whatever, because those are all contract legalese words to be wedded, embedded in contract. And, I always laughed because the word fuck literally comes from to fornicate under the consent of the king. You know,
Okay.
yeah, these are all old law words, right? And when people say, "Oh, well, we're going to go into common law," I said that's for commoners. That's like second, third world slaves, right? Have a treaty, to have a clan mother, to have your matriarchs with the chieftains, like, this is what they did. This is how they still are supposed to operate. And there's still, as you and I are both aware, there's still some tribes. I've met some of these matriarchs. I've been, brought into that fold, right? It doesn't matter what the color of the skin is. And this is why I think there's such a disparity going on. I mean, I don't even recognize Canada up here or BC or Ontario, right? I'm in the Sinaiac territory. I know who Marilyn James is, right? I've spent time in the pit homes. I've spent times on so many different, and again, the reserves with those red tribes. And I wouldn't even want to say red because it's not even the color of the skin. Most of them don't realize that they're coming from those Tartarian tribes too, just like as you think Siberia, Russian, whatever, and Denison, right? Don't say you're North American Indians because this is where the blood migrated to. And I think this is the worst thing I see is the pitting, especially as they think Canadian with residential schools, is to disavow and just discard people because of the color of the skin. I've been with, Bear Clan that we all have AB positive, but we all have like different degrees of melanation. There's what, like 180 degrees of skin tones alone. And you would know as an artist, like, this is why I said this rainbow prophecy and the, condor and the, eagle coming back, or white calf buffalo woman. I'm in the Sinaitic territory where we got lots of prophecy rocks. I've been there. I've read them. This is actually a gathering of the women of the matriarchs here, north of what you think Nelson, in this whole Slocan Kootenai thing. And that Sinaitic territory covered everything from Revelstoke down to basically Spokane. It's like, as people think, like probably a quarter of British Columbia is the Sinaitic territory alone that Canada doesn't recognize. Yet we have all the prophecy stuff up here. I've been on old pyramids, by the way, in the middle of the prairies that the original hereditaries cover up. Right?
Oh, really?
Yep.
Yeah.
The bounds and the reserves. No, when I grew up in Saskatoon, second largest medicine wheel in, basically the world is at Saskatoon. What you think by just north is probably 20 minutes from the University of Saskatchewan. Those are gates and temples, right? Which is why they've done a lot of mud flood and underground, deep underground, or DUMBs, deep underground military bases and bunkers all over that they started taking over since World War I and World War II.
You said
Right?
there was a medicine wheel there.
Yeah, I grew up, I was a protector of it. Yeah. So
Okay,
it's called
I'm trying
Wanasque
to
when.
understand that I'm trying to understand. You said there was a medicine wheel, but then you started talking about pyramids.
Well, there's pyramids north of that. Like I've been taken by some of the.
Underground, you mean?
Hmm?
You mean underground?
They're above ground, but they're covered right now with dirt and stuff. But yeah, they're actually pyramids. They're pyramids all over, like as you think Canada and States, right? And then the chambers, and then also they're like snakes in the mounds and the star forts and all that. They're still around. I've been to some of them,
Okay.
But yeah, actually, one of the original chiefs, in there, like a lot of people don't realize, like a lot of these supposedly North American Indians are actually Palladians, right? They are actually, they say they're from the Star Nations. They mean they come out of the Palladians, the Seven Sisters, Snow
Right.
White and the Seven Dwarfs. Or when we talk about Bear Clan, Octarius, Ursa Major, Ursa Minor, ours Octarian, Tartarian. Where did they talk about that? Goldilocks and the Three Little Bears, right? Or the North Star, or Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. It's built all within a lot of our, childhood, stories and myths and legends and stuff, right? And that's
That's
why,
I